Welcome to Conversations That Coach. This is our after show podcast. We're continuing the discussion about work-life balance. Does it actually exist? And we're saying, no, it doesn't. Right, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely. And we thought we'd do something a little bit different today. It's great if we can sit here and give you best practices and strategies, but at the end of the day, we wanted to keep it real today and just talk about what's happening in our lives and how are we managing work life. We're going to call it prioritization, and talk about some of the things that are happening within our lives today and how we're managing that, how we're shifting, how we're navigating, what resources we're actually leveraging day to day. I've had some really challenging times recently, and I know Cynthia and Stephanie, we all face it, right? So whoever's listening, you're facing it as well. So no matter what you're going through, know you're not alone. And I think it's important that we just share. We just are raw and honest and transparent about how we just leverage what we have, and how we're just making it every day, right? Because at the end of the day, it always works out. And I've had this saying that I've leaned on for the last couple of years. It's one of these things. You guys know I'm all about the phrases and analogies. And one of my really good friends, who's also a coach, a couple of years ago said to me, Melissa, remember, things that are happening are always happening for you, not to you. And for some reason, when she said that to me, it is stuck with me every single day. Now, I don't know if you all have those moments where it's like you have that aha and you just kind of run with it. But I know when things are challenging me, I always stop and I go, this is happening for me. Everything that's happening to us is always happening for us for a reason. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And if we can sit back and really hone in on that thought for just a moment, no matter how bad the situation is, it kind of gives you that hope, right? It's that moment of, you know what? I'm going to get through this. And I'll just share a little bit. Struggling with my health recently, and I don't know if it's just getting older and all the things, but the last few days I'm like, what is going on with my body? And it's made me really take a look at what I'm doing from a exercise perspective, just overall health, down to what's in my water I'm drinking, to, because we know how much food ties in with how we feel. But like, I'm almost 48, you guys, and it's like I've never suffered with allergies. And for the last 3 days, like, I have had the worst case of allergies I've ever had. And I'm like, where did this come from? And now I'm realizing what people have had to deal with, that have, I know there's people getting shots every day for allergies. And I'm like, wow, this is awful having to go through this. Um, my mother is having some health issues. So I actually, came over to Tampa yesterday to kind of spend some time with her. I'm going to the doctor with her this afternoon. So I've had to shift some things around. We're all going through the stuff. So I just wanted to be real honest and raw with, what do we do, right? When we get that call, or, we're just not feeling great. Right now, Stephanie's dealing with something, and I'll let her talk about it. But what do we do? I mean, do we put a stop on our plans? I mean, do we shift? Do we navigate? And I think that's where it comes down to. It's not life balance. It's not work-life balance. It's prioritization. It is about, what is the priority? What really needs to get done today? What can be shifted? What can I lean on somebody else for those of you that have trouble asking for help? There's a time in your life where you're going to have to recognize and realize you might just have to ask for help. So it's kind of
Yeah,
where
a couple of things that you said, Melissa, really resonated with me. First off, total transparency. Again, this is like a real conversation. If I sound a little different, it's because I hurt my tongue. I bit it and I bit the side of it. So I'm going to take a bit of a back seat and listen more and just ask those questions. But if I sound differently or if I'm not talking as much as I usually do, that is why. But what you said, Melissa, about all of a sudden having those allergies and never having them before, I think what it reminded me is that our journeys are an evolution. And it is so easy to just assume that life will remain the same. Our health will remain the same, our work will remain the same, and then all of a sudden, out of left field, it seems, something changes and we're not equipped to handle that change, that deviation, and it kind of throws us for a loop. But you're right. I mean, and I also think, having also been recently quite ill, I thought of, I didn't phrase it like your phrase, which is things are happening for you and not to you, is feeling really, really ill. My whole family got ill with the stomach bug, but it forced me to stop. And that was a blessing. And it wasn't fun, but it really was that wake-up call I think I needed to re-examine some of these things in terms of taking care of my health and taking care of my body and what's more important. And so after I recovered, during it, I kept thinking, okay, this is actually an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to re-examine, reprioritize, and refocus my energy. And so it was after that bout of illness that I decided, you know what, I need to refocus back on my health. Not that I could have prevented the stomach bug, but at the same time, it was that wake-up call that I needed to do just that. So, I mean, I feel very connected with what you shared, because I do feel like these are opportunities for all of us to sit back and really figure out what's going on and what is, fill in the blank, my soul, my body, my spirit, what is it telling me that I need to really listen to?
Yeah. I love that. I think it's hard when you're driven. We're all driven, women. And when we go through something and we have to take a step back, to your point, Stephanie, our body's telling us, our spirit, whatever, is saying, hold on, let's realign and refigure, out what our next step is and where we go. And we know how important our health is, especially as we get older. But we also have to realize is our bodies aren't, 20 anymore, at our age. It's like things change and our body is deteriorating, getting older,
and maturing, not getting older.
Right, maturing. I love that. But besides allergies, I think my back's been out for over a week. And normally, if my back goes out within 2 or 3 days, like, I'm golden. I know what exercises to do. I see a chiropractor. Like, I have a thing that I do that gets me back. And now it's been a week. So mentally, you know how it is. Physically, when you're not 100%, mentally, you start to decline. So I don't know, Cynthia, if you can speak to that, Cynthia, when physically you're not 100%, like, I don't know, what do you do? Are there some things mentally, when you start to struggle a little bit?
Well, first off, I'm going to say I'm relating to both of y'all in that this year I turned 57. And so I'm flirting hot and heavy. I mean, French kissing was 60 here. But like, you were saying, Melissa, you're at a phase now, or you've experienced these things in the past couple of weeks, which has shifted your health to be a number one priority. Here's something for me that for years I said this, okay? These were my top 3 priorities: God, family, and then business, and in that order. And while I did practice those from a high level, having that balance and, priorities between work and business and all this other stuff, what I found was I actually wasn't doing that. And in the past couple of years, I made the commitment to myself that I was going to deepen my faith and my spirituality, which then really now I have that God as a priority. Family's always been a priority in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we've been in meetings together and one of us gets a call that's the daycare or it's the school or one of our kids. And so we stop and we take it. And everybody that's listening, all you ladies and gentlemen, can relate in that, you know, we answer the phone for the kids. Now, from a health perspective, again, turning 57 this year, that's one of the things for me that is a priority, and that's self-love, self-awareness, and self-care. So me, myself, and I taking care of those three crazy girls. I say girls because we're still young. When I look in the mirror, I still see the 20-something, just with a few extra lines. But you're prioritizing and taking care of ourselves. But for me, it begins in the morning. I have this morning ritual that I refuse to deviate from because it prepares my mindset, it prepares my physical body, and then it also feeds my spirituality. So those three corners, I'm well equipped and prepared to deal with the stuff that life is going to throw at us, because life does throw us stuff like, you know, poor Stephanie and the tongue today, and me, everybody wants to all of a sudden call me and ding me on my cell phone while we're having this very important call and recording. So yeah, can you relate, ladies?
Yes. Yes.
So, right, Melissa?
It is. And I'm glad you said that, because it really is about self-care and self-love. And, you know, we talk about prioritization, you know, and having that scheduled time and being intentional, right, about the self-care, whatever that looks like for you. And actually, it was you, when you and I were coaching over a year or so ago, and we were talking about this, and you were like, Melissa, you know, I want you to take your shoes off and I want you to go walk around the grass. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, but grounding, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. But
it felt good too, didn't it?
Felt good. And I was doing it a few times a day, just those little things. Because when you can have those moments, whatever it looks like for you, whether it's grounding or taking a walk or meditating or whatever, I mean, it just helps get you realigned. And when you're mentally in a great place, it just goes to your physical. And I believe in all of that alignment between mind, body, and spirit. I actually just watched a really great documentary called Heal. I think it was on Amazon Prime, and it was all about that connection and how to really prepare yourself mentally and how you can truly heal yourself through a lot of that mental practice and meditation and things. So it was really interesting, but it reiterated to me that if I can get a hold of my mind, I can help my body.
And two things, and then I'll, you know, again, take a step back, but two things that both of you talked about. I think in addition to self-love and self-care, self-acceptance is huge. And that goes to the evolution. We both went, because I think so often we fight against ourselves. And, you know, for example, Cynthia, when you were talking about the aging process, we fight against that, right? We fight against the aging process, but we do need to accept the fact that we're aging. And self-care evolves. How we cared for ourselves in our 20s, which, you know, I really didn't do, but now I have to. And so I have to accept that and put that into practice. And then the one other thing, Cynthia, that you talked about when you were aligning God, family, and yourself. And I feel like so many times we check the boxes, but that doesn't mean anything. That's an empty gesture. Like you're like, okay, said my prayer. Okay, hugged my family, told them I love them. I did this. But what does that mean if we're not really being intentional and mindful of focusing and prioritizing those? It doesn't mean anything. And I think that's something else that, you know, I've had to constantly remind myself. It's just because I checked the box doesn't mean I actually accomplished my goal. So anyway, I love this conversation. I know I said I wouldn't speak a lot because I am in pain, but you guys are bringing up such great points. Like I'm like, yes.
Well, you know, one other point that I wanted to bring up is what Melissa opened up with, and that is, as we are facing challenges, and challenges are merely opportunities, things that are coming at us, they're coming at us for a reason. And many times we're inviting them to us. But having the strength and the courage within ourselves to reach out and ask for help, right? And we opened up our last conversation directing it specifically to that, and that is trusting the people around you that is in that inner circle, in that inner sphere of influence. And Stephanie, last time before we opened up our last call, you shared some challenges with us, and together we talked them through and helped. Look, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because that's what it's all about. It's asking for help. It's listening to your body. And I'm a fast-paced person, okay, so I'm about to choke on my words here, but it's slowing down just a little bit to smell the roses and pay attention to what's going on, and not just checking off boxes. It's about appreciating the joy around you. It's about loving life. It's about enjoying the journey and the adventure, right?
Yes.
I love that. And unfortunately, I think sometimes we don't necessarily get that. And sometimes it's a matter of maturity or becoming older, realizing what's important in life. I have these, you guys know I'm emotional as it is, but I had this moment the other day where I was really thinking about like my kids, and all these little moments that I feel like I missed because I was so caught up that I didn't take that intentional time when they were smaller, or maybe spend enough time doing specific things, right? So I love that you say that, because it's so true for us to really take a step back in those moments and just really appreciate what's happening, because we just don't. We really don't, because we're so caught up in what's happening. So I love that. I've been thinking about and I've been thinking about that now with my mom, and I'm so grateful and thankful that she's in my life. But we know that, that only lasts so long. It really goes back to, surrounding yourself with those people that are most important, and making those moments, being intentional, taking those times. And if that means, you know what, it's reprioritizing. That's what this call is about. It's about shifting. And it's about, right now, it's time with mom, right? Over here, it's time with my son, my daughter, my spouse, whatever that looks like. Take time today and be intentional. Figure out what that looks like for you. Because I think it's just so easy to go, you know what, there's always tomorrow. But we know that's not the case. Every day our world's changing. Another school shooting yesterday, and there's just this continuation of, at what point do we go, okay, we went through COVID, we reprioritized our family, and now I think maybe society's shifting a little bit away, and I think we need to get a hold of that again, my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel, but
I agree. I agree. Go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I agree. I think, especially the pandemic, it was a wake-up call. But of course, our memories are short and we tend to forget. And then we go right back into those routines and the patterns and the bad habits that we had built up over the years. And before we know it, we're right back in it.
I love that.
Workaholic.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Routines, patterns, and behaviors. That's exactly what it is. And yeah, when I think about, and I know a lot of moms will in my age, the ones that were, career driven and all of that, I know many a time my kids are talking to me, I'm thinking of eight other things, right? Going on, work life, all of the things. It's like, wow, how many moments did I really miss out on? It really takes you back. But again, we don't want to live in the past. We got to focus on the future. And okay, we're not made of that guilt and shame anymore. I'm going to live for today. What can I do today to make a difference? What can I do today to change those patterns, routines, and habits to create ones for my future? What I want for my future. Now that I recognize, you know what, this is what I need to do better. How do I get there?
And I think part of all of this
takes us.
Oh, I'm just going to say one quick thing, Cynthia. I think part of all of this is also self-forgiveness, because I think we tend to be really critical about our previous patterns, how we prioritized in the past. And it's so hard to spiral and get down on ourselves saying, gosh, if only I had spent more time with my kids, if only I had dedicated my life more to this area of focus. And so, like you said, Melissa, we become so consumed with what we view as, the mistakes, the lost time, the regrets, that we don't focus on the here and now and really building up what we should be focusing on and being intentional in that. And I know, Cynthia, that's something that, you can really speak on as well.
Yes. Well, the direction that I was also going in is it's just so important for us not to be, living in the past, right? There's no such thing as going back to the morning routine that I had before because it worked, or going back to the other habits because that worked for me. That was in that space and time. And so the 3 R's: reflect, review, and renavigate. What's going well? What could be better? Now, what will I do differently? It's not about going back. That's why the rear view mirror in our car is this size and the windshield is this size. It's much bigger because the future right here, right now is what we can impact. We can plan for tomorrow and have hope for tomorrow. But what's most important is living in today and living right now, right? And it's easier said than done. But what's also most important, in the third point that I want to bring up, is everyone that is listening right now, and the 3 of us talking, have people that are looking at us and watching us, either from our inner circle, which is our children and our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews, our siblings, our friends, our spouse. Everyone around us is watching us at work and at home, and we are leading by example. And so at the same time, our actions that we're taking, we're teaching others around us without saying, hey, watch me and how I do it.
Yeah.
Would you agree,
And I know
Lynn?
that you talk fast, Cynthia, in your brain, but I want to go back to something you said because I love it. And I had never heard of it described like that, but the rear view mirror analogy.
Yes.
I love it. So I want to take a moment because you're right. And I'd never really thought of it, that the rear view mirror is so much smaller than the window you're looking out on and the windshield you're looking up to, right? What's down, literally down the road. That's the largest. And then you have these windows next to you that are the next largest. And then your rear view mirror, important, but not the priority. And I had never heard of that, but I just wanted to go back to that and have our viewers and audience reflect on that, because I think that's so fantastic to think about on a daily basis.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'll even put it in the perspective of in business. In business, an organization goes to a bookkeeper in the finance department, is gathering the data and inputting it into the system. A controller is printing reports for us to look at so we can ask questions of what's gone well, what could be better. And then the CFO comes in and looks at the big picture. And that's where we talk about strategy and planning for the future and looking forward, because we have reflected back and looked behind us only to gather information, right? Because experiences teach, not words. And so if we look in the past to reflect, not beat ourselves up, not go into the back, but look backwards, so then that way it can propel us forward, because we've learned all of these lessons. We've paid that tuition and learned these lessons. And now we're taking these lessons with us into the future. And I like the way you said the windows next to us. That's the here and the now. Who's in the front seat with us? Who's in the car with us right now? That's who we need to pay attention to, because those are the memories that we're creating for the future. That's the legacy that we're leaving behind. So anyway,
I love that.
On it.
I love that. So, me, I always have my little timer that goes off.
I was
so
waiting for you to say something.
It did go off, but I didn't know, Melissa, if you had any final thoughts before we wrap up this podcast. Because gosh, I feel like this all started with something you said, and I was like, oh my gosh. And Cynthia was like, oh my gosh. So I didn't know if you had any final thoughts.
I think it just goes back, just to wrap it up, it goes back to self-love and self-care. And really just that self-reflection, like you said, Cynthia, go back. If it's in the past, just review, gather data, but really focus on the future. Use that windshield, use your side windows, the here and now, and make who is that person in your front seat. Be intentional about what you want your future to look like and make it happen. Make it happen. And you can shift. Make sure you ask for help. That's the number one. Took me decades to learn that one. So if I can say that's my one life-saving tip is lean on others. If people say, "Are you okay?" and you're not, say, "You know what? I'm not." And it's okay. Like we're here to lean on each other. And I think if we did a better job with really asking for help, we'd be in a much better place sometimes.
And you know what? From time to time, roll that window down, let that breeze go through your hair, and just enjoy the moment. Yes,
I
Cynthia, you can't
love
see
it.
it if you're just listening to us, but she is flipping her hair,
Flipping
looking
hair.
fabulous right now. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to the after show with us. Catch us on another Conversations That Coach podcast. See you later.